Greetings, everyone. My name is Luis Molina, and I'm the host of the Life Puro. Today, I'm excited to have a special guest who I've known for about 13 years now. His name is Gustavo Martinez, and here is his story. With that, Gus.
What's up, man?
What's up, man?
I see you're wearing that Valencia shirt.
I know. I got
I'm a Real Madrid, so I'm gonna have to say it a la Madrid, baby.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I like Madrid too, but I'm weird. I'm one of those fans that like everyone. So I
know,
I guess I'm not a real fan, but I'm a fan of La Liga. So,
I hear you.
But with that, before we get started, we got you a little selection of cigars. So smoke whichever one you want.
Oh, definitely. I see it's all Oscar. You can't go bad with that.
I know. Your affinity towards Oscar, a fellow Honduran.
Oh yes, sir. I think
Which one are you going to go with?
the Leaf, baby.
Okay, so that's a Leaf 10th anniversary.
10th anniversary.
So you haven't had that before, huh?
No.
Okay.
This is good. Wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah, because you've had all the other Leaf by Oscars, right?
You know, I find it so interesting how he wraps this with the Leaf, man. It really, it's a great presentation on it, man. It's just awesome, you know.
And I think we featured that cigar on a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
That was the thing with that company when they first hit the market. So many people thought it was such a gimmick and looked silly, quite frankly. But once people tried it, they were like, oh, wait a minute.
I love this thing because this brings me back because, you know, I never told you. I've told you my story of how I started smoking cigars, but I never told you who actually, you know, I really, it's an old man that lived in Honduras. He was actually Mayan descent, and his name was. Well, we always called him Tata. I never knew his real name. Tata was like a sense of saying, you know, grandfather or stuff like that, you know. But he worked for my grandfather, and he actually he was just a supervisor, but you would have loved him. This guy smoked cigars. I don't think I ever had a conversation with Tata wasn't smoking a cigar. You know, he
always had a cigar in his mouth. Huh?
His wife used to tell me he sleeps smoking sometimes, and like sometimes he would burn his lip because the damn ash would hit his lips and stuff. I said, Lou would love this guy.
I know. Oh.
I have to tell him about Tata, but you know, Tata was always it was hilarious because I remember I told you like first time I said, you know, the first time I ever smoked a cigar was a backwood. You remember?
Yeah.
I told you that?
Yeah.
But when I brought Tata some backwoods, he was like, "What the hell is this?" You know, it's like, and he's like, "No, this is a real cigar. Let me show you. You know, I want you to respect the tobacco leaf, and you know, I want you to see what it is because in his culture they would call it, you know, they would call it la planta sagrada, which is the sacred plant, and it's like, and you know, he was always telling me how, you know, the plant had medicinal properties and all this other stuff, so." Tata would use it for everything, man. Like he would literally put this like leaf right on his throat and everything.
Yeah.
And he said it would like cure stuff like, you know, sore throats. They would put all this other medicine on top of it, but you know, they put that with a cloth over their neck and stuff like that. I mean, he was like real Mayan, man. I mean for real, like 100% ancestry and everything else. But yeah, it was just awesome, man. And I think what fascinated me about his stories got me really smoking and appreciating tobacco, you know, and cigars and everything more. I mean, I think I fell in love with it. But this is a man that, like, you know, and he just. I mean, he used to always tell me, you know, the stories. He said, man, you know, we would as our ancestors would grab these cigars, these tobacco, and they would just like you know, before they would do a harvest or anything else, they would like smoke it. And you know, to ask for the four corners of the world or something about that they would ask permission from the gods for good crop.
Whoa.
You know,
okay.
And they actually thought they would actually tell me. It was so funny because he actually believed that if you smoked a cigar and you were and you had a beautiful ash, that it's like the gods were favoring you. Now, if your tobacco was burning the wrong way, it was going black, it's not going to be a good year for you.
What?
So it's like,
Whoa.
It was hilarious. So it's just like, dang. So I just was like, so sometimes you'll see me giggling when the cigar's not burning really good. I said, you know, and I might say, you know, I wonder how this date's going to go with this girl or something like that. And I start seeing it smoking the wrong way. I said, I guess it's not too good for me, you know?
Yeah, maybe I'll call a timeout or delay this.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, that's awesome. So, you know, that reminds me of our first guest we had on the podcast, Greyhawk, who you've met, Greyhawk.
Yeah, good friends.
You know, he's Native American of the Choctaw and Houma Nations. And kind of like Tata, what it sounds like is that he also has this almost spiritual reverence towards the tobacco leaf.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, just as most Native Americans, the Mayans included,
Yeah, they
had this respect for it.
Yeah, I was always impressed because it, I'm a big history buff, you know that, and I thought that would tell me stuff like, and he would show me stuff like I had all these old Mayan like engravings because we would go to Copan with him too, and he used to tell me like even tobacco, cocoa, stuff like that. This was a currency back in those days.
Yeah.
This is how the Indians would trade for certain things between themselves, And I was just like shocked. I was like, man, how the importance of tobacco for medicinal, for spiritual purposes were just huge.
For financial.
Yeah, for financial, for
commerce.
everything, just for everything. It's an everyday part of life. And, but me, I think I fell in love with it because more of the way, I don't know, just everybody hanging out with each other. It's kind of like our time for us as men. I don't know, just hang out,
Let
talk
our hair
manly
down,
stuff.
so to speak.
Talk about
Little
shit
hair.
that we can't tell about other women and just whatever.
That's right.
Have conversations as men.
And you're hearing like, I guess, almost like this lack of that in this country in this age. The demasculination.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying it right, of men. But like naturally, like we're biologically set for certain things and behaviors. You can't deprive that, you know? And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, to your point, a lot of guys love smoking a cigar with other guys.
Wow, this is really good.
You like it?
I love it.
Yeah.
This is really nice.
I'm surprised you haven't had
Hey, look,
that.
my ash is going really good, so it tells me this could be a good year for me.
It's going to be a good premonition, yeah. Yeah, maybe a good 2024 to start off.
Good interview, hopefully, man. We'll see.
Yeah. No, I'm surprised you haven't had that because I know you're a big Oscar fan. And
Well, every
him
time
being
I
a fellow
come over here-
Honduran, you always support.
Well, remember, I don't live in Baton Rouge. I live in New Orleans, so every
Right.
time I go to the elementary store, they're like, "Oh, we just got out." I'm like, "Oh, you serious? I'm never going to try this thing." I'm glad this is the first one. This is really nice.
Yeah. So where did you grow up? You're from Honduras, right? What
Yeah,
town?
so let me see. I came here when I was 2 years old. My father was the first one that actually he took off. So my father was a businessman. He had his own record store. It was actually what was crazy is
What?
my father was. That's the reason why I fell in love with music so much. You know
Okay,
that for me.
I know. You're a music guy.
I love it. I mean, everything from opera to you name it. I don't think there's a song music that I don't listen to. But he, my father had a record store, and he was just selling stuff. He was just big time, and then Hurricane FIFA came, or Fifi, or I think what it was, something like that, and came.
What year would that have been?
Oh, I don't know, man. It was
In the 70s?
Yeah, so it just destroyed his story. My dad put his heart and soul into that thing, man. He actually had a good friends of his that were from from England that donated him like these old telephone booths, that from London and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And he actually he was the first one that started bringing these records out so that women could listen to it. And he put a headphone on and everything else, and let you sit inside the booth so that you could have your own private like telephone booth to listen to music.
Oh, cool.
So he had two of those. That thing got destroyed by the storm. Everything the whole area, because for some reason, like where he had the store at, it was cheap rent, but it was kind of like in a little valley. So it was like when he came back, the whole store was full of mud all the way up to the middle of it. So it was just like, he just decided, he was an electrician by heart. He decided to leave and come over and come to tries, because we had a good friends of him that my father always had that gift of the tongue, so
The silver tongue.
his silver tongue. So he had friends in the government, and they gave him a visa to come.
Okay, to the U.S.
To the U.S. And so he worked. Thank God he worked for the offshore companies, and the offshore company really, people talk really bad about fossil fuels, but fossil fuels got my butt over to the United States. I mean, he got us all, the whole family, a visa. And then after that was it. I grew up. So basically, most of my life, I grew up all my life in New Orleans. And then
What neighborhood?
7th Ward and Esplanade. It was so when my dad and my father got a divorce, they didn't live too far away from each other. My father lived in the 7th Ward, which was like on North Broad, which is a block away from Seafood City back in the days,
Oh,
you know.
shit, yeah.
Yeah. So, and
What's that jingle?
yeah, the
It's Oscar Musa?
Seafood City.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my mother lived in Esplanade because she wanted to be closer to our school. We grew up, went to Catholic school, Our Lady of the Rosary, right next to Cabrini High, and that's where we went to school at. So we literally grew up around about a block away from the school. It was a little street called Bayou Grand St. John back in the
Oh, yeah.
beautiful neighborhood, great. Nobody really leaves that neighborhood. You just die and then they move it on to their children and their children. It's just generation. But at that time,
Was it kind of rough back then in that neighborhood? It was always nice.
No,
huh?
that neighborhood is always nice. Roughness was my dad's neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
Broad was
Yeah.
it was shady. It was yeah, you had to be like, it was funny because like when I was Monday to Friday, I used to always say this, Monday to Friday I had to deal with, I was living normal life. On the weekends, when I go to my father's house, I had to kind of watch my back and protect myself because we're one of the first Latin kids, me and my cousins. It was me, my brothers, and then my cousins. We were like the first Hondurans actually in an all-black neighborhood.
Okay.
And the first couple of months were rough and everything, but
You got little street fights?
yeah.
Yeah.
We had to learn how to take care of ourselves real quickly. But after that, it was just, we were really pretty embraced by the black community, and nobody really messed with us. But then we started cutting up with each other, and then everybody became friends. But back in them days, when you had a fight or you had an argument or somebody, you fought with your fists.
Right.
You
left it at that. Yep.
You left it at that. Most of the time, you shook your hand and you walked away, and y'all became pretty much good friends after that. It's crazy how it was nowadays. People just shoot each other, and they just.
Yeah, it's like you dishonor me, and now I got to shoot you.
Yeah, it's just so cowardly, I like the way it was back in the days,
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess, it's weird, like maybe counterintuitive with people that are in this camp that want to stop bullying, right? I mean, yeah, bullying is bad, but sometimes if you just let them fight it out, and I've heard of some people say, and I'm not saying I agree with one or the other, but who believe like let them fight it out, let them duke it out with their fists, because they'll learn, and then a lot of times they hash out their problems and they become friends after that.
Yeah. What you're trying to do, you got to realize, my father told us to say this, for you trying to teach a young man how to be a young man, there's certain things that life's just going to teach him on his own. And I think my father actually, we were all put in boxing classes when we were young.
Really?
Yeah, just for the reason that my father worked 60, 70 hours a week, typical Latin dad that's always working. And he knew that, we were the different ones from the whole group. So he's just like, and he just knows how certain people react to new cultures and new this and that. So he just wanted us to protect ourselves. Just to make sure, because and man, I learned. I mean, dude, trust me, I fought bigger kids most of the times, and look, surrounded by my brothers sometimes, and my brothers would not step in.
Right.
They're like, "This is you," and I'm like, "Dang, dude!" It's like, "Come on, man,
Help me out.
help me out." He's like, "No, man." He said, "Because one day we're not going to be here. You got to earn your own respect." And I think growing up like that, it taught me to, but it showed me a lot of respect too. It showed me a lot of restraint. Because also, like, you have to learn, too, that when the fight's over, it's over. And I think that's another thing that, bullying just, kids bully because they're so I think kids that get bullied or bullied kids, people that bully a lot, they haven't found that one person that's shown them also, hey, you know what, there's consequences to your actions. And, if you don't really, until it takes that one kid to knock them out to go, maybe I shouldn't be doing this for the,
Right.
And hey, if you don't learn that, then let's just say he grows up and he just keeps never getting his ass whooped, and man,
Yeah, because there's no consequences. They never experience the potential harm that comes with their actions. They continue, right? It's human behavior, incentives, or whatnot. So
there's always a bigger. What does they say? There's always another lion, or younger lion, or stronger lion around the corner. So you need to. Respect. So yeah, definitely. Loving the smoke, man.
Yeah, I still can't believe he hadn't had that. I would have thought, but yeah, it honors the 10th anniversary of the Leaf by Oscar.
I like that dude. He's so humble, man. He's such a
because you've met him several times.
Yeah. He's I remember when you took me to the show, and I was just like, he had the smallest booth. You remember? He's the smallest booth. He just started out.
That must have been in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it would have been about 10 years.
But I saw. You know what? It's funny.
Or no, maybe 20. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. There was one year, I think they were in New Orleans in 2010, and then a few years after that, maybe 2012 or 13.
I think it was the first time that they were in New Orleans because, but I talked to him, and
that's right.
First of all, like I realized, first of all, he was so humble. That always, to me, always, I've always liked people that are humble. But the same thing is like, man, I one thing that I realized too is that, like when you talk about cigars, it's you could tell that's your first love. I know that about Lou. I said, you talk about cigars, and you could just tell, that that's something that he loves, and you could tell, like when I was talking to Oscar, how much he loves the industry, the cigar. I just
he had
everything.
That same passion, right?
Yeah, he talked about. I mean, this guy in 20 minutes that I talked to him, we went through the farming aspect, to the leaf, to the touch, to the flavor, to the. And he was really passionate about bringing like Honduran cigars back to the, to where they were at in their glory days, because nowadays everybody, I have no, look, I've had Nicaraguan girlfriends. I have no problem with Nicaragua. I just, I like Honduran cigars just because I think that, they go through their stages of like it's almost like Cuban cigars have those like layers where you're smoking them and then you're like, oh man, I taste this, I taste that, and I taste I taste this I taste coffee, I taste leather, I like that kind of stuff, and I find that with Honduran cigars a lot. I don't find it that much with Nicaraguans. I just find it's a lot of power, which hey, that's
so you're
good.
saying in your view Nicaraguans maybe are too one dimensional for your
right.
And they focus more on like the powerhouse, the nicotine.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And not all of them, but that's how like Hoyt and Nicaragua, when they first hit the scene with their Antonio, that was like considered, I think that was released in the early 2000s. That was like considered, oh my gosh, like the market's like, this is a strong cigar.
Right.
And then ever since then, that seemed to be like the
trend.
Yeah, like the view of Nicaraguans in general. But I mean, it's certainly more
and
complexity.
Look, they've come a long way. I mean, trust me, I have all the respect for them. I mean, I think they're not so all the way one dimensional anymore. You know what I'm saying? I think they got all the bugs out of in a sense, you know. But
Honduras, like to your point, I think at one point they were like the kings in the industry.
Yeah.
Like in the 80s and 90s. So think of like Rolando Reyes. Rest in peace. Like he was like probably one of the original, along with the Aroa family.
The old stickler. You remember?
I know. You knew a lot about his history. Did you ever meet the man or
no?
Or
I
know
met
the
people
family?
that work for the man. Actually, to tell you the truth, his
don't worry
anger,
about that.
His anger was one other thing that I used to hear about. So I heard from, I don't know how true the story was, but I heard that one time this guy he hired this guy, was a new guy, and he was a new roller, and he bragged about how good he rolled and blah blah blah. I don't know who hired him, somebody in the store, but he came in and bragging, and then I heard Rolando Reyes saw what he rolled, and he just grabbed the whole box and just threw it to the wall. And he said, start over. And he was just like, and he realized it, and it was just, and from what it was some like just some little screw up. There was nothing big, but it was just one little screw up that he did. He just went ape shit, And then it's just like, and it was just like, and the guy was just like, man, I got better change. I got to get better. My level's got to be better. And
it sounded like it humbled him,
right?
Too, huh?
Yeah, and it humbled him too. And it was just like, it was weird how they said, he was just really, really particular about, precise and precision, just quality. And man, you spoke to Puerto Rican back in those days. Holy crap, man. That son of a bitch was good, man. I mean,
the green label.
It was, and
they went against the grain because supposedly I've heard from a lot of old timers, you never should use green in your packaging or color scheme.
Right.
Something about green and cigars just don't match, I guess. I don't know. But he went against that and like, F it, I'm just going to put that iconic green background with the
Love
Puros
that about
Indios.
that old man. He don't care about nobody.
Yeah.
He just,
He
Hey,
was focused.
wasn't he Cuban also?
I think so. Yeah, he was
Cuban.
originally Cuban, and just like the typical Cuban story, after the revolution, they were displaced all over the world.
Right.
And I don't know if he went first to Honduras. I'd have to get the backstory. I think Cigar Aficionado did a great, lengthy article on him, but early issues.
Right.
But yeah, for people now that start smoking, they, unfortunately, his name is now a memory.
Right.
They don't even know who he is.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you.
But he was like the brand of the '90s.
Yeah. He had
Him and La Gloria Cubana, when
Yeah.
Ernesto Perez Carrillo owned.
Oh yeah. Jeez.
Yep, LGC. I mean, those were the two, what I call the two big brands of the '90s.
Yeah.
And then in the '80s, I would say it was like the Excalibur.
Oh God. The oil.
And that was Honduran, right?
Dude, let me tell you something. I could have with the amount of cigars I bought from Oya de Monterrey and Rolando Reyes, I probably could have bought a couple cars. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that was just this is becoming an expensive habit.
So I want to ask you your I guess time as a cigar smoker back in the '90s. Where were you going? Because I want to talk about that shop. You and our mutual friend Joey.
Oh yeah. All right. So we our first place that we smoked, there was a place in Robert E. Lee, which was Robert E. Lee back in those days. It's a humidor room.
Yeah, right across the street from El Carmel for any more linear.
Literally, yeah. It's
that strip mall back there.
Yeah, it's literally actually now it's a coffee shop. It's right where Robert's coffee shop is at,
or Robert's Market. Yeah.
It's right next door, and it was upstairs, and they had a guy in there, and he was I'm trying to remember his name. I think it was Sam
Charles.
No, not the owner. Not the owner.
Oh, okay.
It was the actual guy that worked. Because I met Charles once or twice.
Oh, okay.
But this guy, he was Samoan. I remember that. It was a Hawaiian guy. Real, dang it, I can't remember this guy's name. But either way.
So he was like the manager?
Yeah. He was the manager. He did everything. And he was always at the shop.
Okay.
And this guy just you ever notice that, there's certain people that had that calm and soothing voices and everything. That dude was real smooth like that. Real cool dude, man. Everything else real nice. And he's always pushing certain cigars that he would smoke and everything else. And
right.
He's like, hey man, try this. You're gonna love it. Just try it. Trust me, if you don't like it, it's on the house. And I'm like, holy
what?
crap. Yeah, no, for real.
He was one of those shops?
Oh, yeah. He was
man.
And I was like, I believe you, because everything you've given to me was, was impeccable. And the first cigar that he gave me was the Oya de Monterrey.
Okay.
And I was just like,
the classic Oya de Monterrey or the Oya de Monterrey Excalibur?
The Excalibur.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was just like, what the hell is this? And I saw my bank account go ding, ding, ding.
Yeah.
It's like, uh-oh.
Because, man, people back then who smoked that brand, even talking to other old timers, they say it was different than what it is today. Not to disparage the current blend, but it was just different. And it could have been that it was when I think it was the Villazon company that owned it before General bought them out. And I remember even those old boxes on the bottom, when they would put the country of origin, they called it, I don't know, it was Spanish Honduras, they called it.
Mm-hmm.
Or, I don't know, or British Honduras, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know the history of Belize. Wasn't Belize part of Honduras at one point?
Honduras, yeah.
And the British had something to do with that.
Yeah, so Belize is it's always been called
British Honduras?
Yeah. Actually, when I go to Belize all the time, they find out I'm Honduras. They always call me hermano, brother.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we have very, very close ties to because at one time, they were kind of, although they were separate.
A colony?
Yeah, I say although they were separate, I think because the English and they're the ones that really had that under control. But Honduras and Belize always had a very strong, close ties to each other. I don't know that.
Unlike maybe El Salvador and
no, we've had. Look, let me tell you something.
Kind of like the siblings that always had the rivalry.
Dude,
huh?
they always. Let me tell you something. I love El Salvadoran people. You know that. The funny thing is, sure, we had a war over soccer games.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's that's what you expect in families, for some stupid ass fight for some stupid ass crap that we laugh about now, but wasn't good at. It didn't show us any,
Didn't put us in a good light.
Yeah, ever since that, the two countries, I mean, get along very well. So so definitely.
And to show my bias, I mean, I think we make the better pupusa. Although Honduras is pretty good about making the pupusa.
I agree. I mean, y'all have, there is a difference. I had it before.
Really?
Yeah, it's I think it's in the touch, brother. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it's in the touch. It's in the when I've had a pupusa in El Salvador and compared to Honduras now, don't get me wrong. For somebody that doesn't know, it's but my palate is very
sensitive.
Yeah.
Refined.
It's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. But I can tell you there's a difference. I just find it's a lot more the flavors just different, and like I said, but it's the exact same thing with cigars, man. Like, look at now, Excalibur's made from General, and I don't smoke it, man. Back in them days, I'd smoke the other one, and it was different, man. It's just two different hands. You see what I'm saying? It's two different hands, just like the pupusa. It changed hands,
and
I
think it's probably made in the same factory, because Hatsa right now is a factory that makes Excalibur and Punch. Those two brands that were owned by that Villazon family, I think. Right. I think it was a Villazon family. And could it be when new ownership took over that they changed something about the process, or is it just a natural change of the plots? Yeah, over time. Because there's some people who say even Padrones don't smoke like they did in the 80s or 90s, which I don't know. I can't testify to that.
I'm going to tell you
But they've done a good job of like a gradual change,
right.
If there is, I don't know. This is all kind of theoretical.
I think that's kind of where that's kind of why I picked that Oscar's brain one time, because we talked about how everything has everything to do, and he's very particular about keeping even his farming, the people that farm, things that change hands too much. You have to kind of
causes disruption,
right? Yeah,
change,
yeah. You can get a new guy, and then he thinks he knows better, and then he changes something. And it changes the flavor of the tobacco.
The final output's different.
Exactly. So it's like, and I think it maybe you can grow the same thing in the same lots, and let's just say you change the personnel, and it changes. I mean, I just think that the tobacco leaf is just like that. It's
there's so many variables, man.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, look, Tata would always tell me the same thing. He would say, man, you have to. The tobacco is it's a very funny like leaf, you have to know how to dry it. You have to know how to, I mean, because this is an old man that would literally he grew his own, I mean, his habit was so bad he had to grow his own lot.
Nice.
And you would have loved him, man. And he would always he's actually the one that actually showed me, like, he was always the first one that I never forgot this. He would also change the flavors of his cigar by just doing something silly like dipping it in coffee, Mayan coffee. I don't know if you ever had like real strong Mayan coffee, but Mayan coffee, it's funny how the stuff that we used back in the days, it's kind of like pick up what we do nowadays with coffee. But
what's old is new again.
Right. And he had this this cloth thing, and they would grind their own beans and everything, and they would put it in the thing. And he called it the old way, but it's not. I don't think it's a Mayan tradition, but it's actually a Campesino thing where these guys would put the coffee in. And when I'm telling you, Lou, this coffee was so strong, so potent. I mean, if you had your glass of coffee, I mean, it literally like stained everything. But he would slow pour it, and it had this like
a pour over.
Yeah, it was a pour over
through like a sock of sorts.
Yeah, it's like cloth.
Not a sock, but
yeah. And and then he would not let he'd actually put this sock thing in a plastic bag because he was also worried about it changing flavor eventually. So he would always like keep it. He
had his like little particular ritual of how he prepared the coffee.
But he would dip it. He would dip the edge of his cigar after he would light it up. He'd dip it inside the coffee.
Okay.
And then he'd smoke. And then he
let that smoke penetrate and filter through that liquid.
Yeah, well, because he was addicted to both the caffeine and the
nicotine.
Nicotine.
Yeah.
So
those teens, man.
Oh yeah. But look, let me tell you something. He knew something. The old man lived to 103.
He was 103 when he passed away.
Sir. Yes, sir.
So that brings me back to this point. I've always wondered, is tobacco usage. And when I say tobacco usage, I'm not going to talk about cigarettes because that's a totally different class.
Right.
That's the evil, what I call the evil form of tobacco.
Right.
But like pure organic tobacco, or at least natural, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do the benefits outweigh the costs, or the costs outweigh the benefits when using it? And I don't have any data. I'm sure there's studies out there. I don't know if there are, but just anecdotally, me going to these trade shows over the last 15 years, seeing like a lot of these old men who smoke, I would consider extreme amounts, maybe sometimes 10 cigars a day.
Yeah.
And they live in their 80s, 90s, or even hundreds.
Yeah. Doctor said, he was telling me that he said it gets rid of tobacco in its purest form, gets rid of headaches. Like that's why
there are medicinal uses for it.
Yeah. He told me, so Doctor would use it for everything. He used the leaf for even to when they catch Charlie horses. You know what I'm saying?
Really?
Oh yeah. They did. I mean, dude, let me tell you, they used it for stomach aches. I mean, dude, this is a man that used it for like all kinds of stuff. So it was just a weird way of like, you know. I mean, they had their different methods of using tobacco for everything. You know what I'm saying? Rapid for this, like I told you for the throat thing. Rapid for that. I mean, you know, there's many ways that they used it, but this is a man that smoked. I mean, if I say he smoked 10 a day, that's minimum. I mean, minimum.
And what kind of size cigars would he smoke? Do you know?
Man,
Churchills or Toros?
Man, I used to call it the monster.
Really?
Yeah, it's like it looked like he was smoking a tree at sometimes, man. I mean, it's like he'd make his own. I mean, he literally made his own.
Do you know if he fermented the tobacco?
Oh yeah.
So he would grow
he'd actually let it sun dry.
Let it cure.
Yeah,
he was sun
dried it. Yeah, he loved sun drying.
But he didn't ferment it.
I don't know. You know, I was young.
Yeah,
and,
so you don't. Yeah,
so I didn't really know. I just saw he had it hanging.
Okay.
You know, I saw he had it hanging, and he would talk to his plants. Like he would talk to his tobacco plants. Like
wow.
I think he had like 20 plants, and he'd all name them women's names, and he'd always call them my loves. I'm serious.
Yeah,
he was like he was
like
and he said that they would grow better leaves when you give them a lot of love, because he'd always talk about, you know, how plants are a living thing, a living organism. Mm-hmm. So he always believed in affirming, you know, and giving them kindness. And he said that in the end, he would get this product that would. And look, let me tell you something.
It like reciprocated from that love. Almost,
and to this day, like I never forgot. I would smell his cigars, and I've never smelled a cigar like that to this day. And I'm just wondering. I said, I wish I could have smoked it. You know, that's that one cigar that I didn't get to smoke.
Oh,
and because you know my grandfather would not let me. He's like, no, my grandson. But Tata would like smoke it, and I just like smell it, man. It just the tobacco smell. It's so I can't explain it to you. It smells so
something almost like otherworldly, something divine,
something nostalgic, man.
Yeah.
You know, and yet it was but yeah, he took care of his leaves. I mean, he showed me stuff, and you know, just showed me about the certain types of leaves, just how the leaves are growing, and how it's just. I mean, the man knew. You know, I honestly think if had somebody would have grabbed them, one of these cigar companies would have grabbed them, that would have been a great, you know, whatever.
He sounds like this guy who works for Perdomo. His name's Aristides. I think I've told you about him. Who he views tobacco almost the same way, and he's a Cuban. And I loved when I first met him. I would kind of question because he only spoke Spanish. He was a Cuban who was working the industry in Cuba before, during, and after the revolution.
Jeez.
So you don't really find that anymore, right? A lot of these guys have passed on. So I was just questioning him, and I asked him, "Do you think that the Cuban cigars back in their glory days, you know, before the revolution, were they better than like the current?" Like Nicaraguan scene, perhaps, you know, for example. And he's like, oh no, today, like the Nicaraguan scene and the Latin American scene have far outweighed, like surpassed what the Cubans were doing back then. It's just, you still have like this brand image, like the Cubans are still resting on their laurels, but people forget that it was the original families that made Cuba popular and still why they had this fame today. But they all were displaced and went to all these other countries. Yeah. After the revolution.
Yeah.
But I ask you about if Tata fermented his leaf, because when I took a trip down to Christian's facility in Honduras, he was showing us some of his crop, and was telling us this anecdote where the Indians would, when they would smoke tobacco, they didn't ferment it. See, so that was the difference between what the Europeans discovered about tobacco and what the Native Americans did. The Europeans discovered you got to add that extra step of fermenting tobacco via these piles that they call pilones, because you're basically breaking down almost like a controlled decay of the tobacco leaf from the, you're starting with this like harsh compound, but then like this fermenting step makes it sweeter and more palatable. But the Indians didn't do that. So when they would smoke their tobacco, they called it getting dry drunk.
Yeah, it was. It actually.
So that was the term they used. It was a dry drunk.
Well, I used to. It's funny you brought that up. Because that was the first time I heard about the, tobacco. This guy knew his history about tobacco.
Wow. Okay.
His everything. I mean, this is his first love. Then his second love, he said, was his wife and his kids. But but he'd always tell me he'd tell me in secret.
Oh man.
Yeah. And he was the one that told me that Christopher Columbus, when he started doing the history, like this is like that's why he was so proud of the tobacco leaf, because it's actually like a crop from the Americas. You know what I'm saying? And
it's the original. It's a New World plant.
Exactly, New World plant. And he told me the story. Actually, it was funny that you brought that up, because he brought me to the story of Christopher Columbus, and when he first they got encountered with the tobacco, that he said, man, the natives looked like they were drunk almost, in a sense of like this, like what you call it, dry drunk. Yeah, exactly.
State maybe.
And I honestly, to tell you the truth, now that I think about it, I don't think he fermented it, because
you need a lot of tobacco leaves to do that.
Right.
These pilones, I think, I just saw a stat that someone from Aganorsa leaf put out. They, I guess, showed a picture of their pilones in their warehouse. Each pilon accounts for like 40 bales worth. And each bale makes, I think, 3,000 cigars. So what is that? Like 3,000 times 40 is like 120,000 cigars worth in one pilon. So the point is, you need a lot of tobacco, because part of that fermenting step, the way to start that is weight, the weight of the tobacco, right? The sheer volume and weight of tobacco plus wetting the leaf.
Right.
And so with the weight and the moisture, it starts this fermenting chemical process, and it heats up the pilon. So think about like when you cut grass and stuff it in a bag, tie up that bag and leave it in the hot summer sun. If you try to open that bag up the next day or later, you get hit with ammonia, because that's one of the byproducts of fermenting, is getting rid of that ammonia. And it's pretty harsh. So if he didn't do that, like, that's why I asked, like, if he didn't have enough weight.
I think he just sun dried everything.
Honestly,
I
don't think he fermented it.
Yeah, he didn't ferment it, because there were times where I used to think he was lit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, is he drunk, or is he just like
almost like a high?
Yeah. And but for some reason, like, he always talking about not bastardizing the tobacco leaf and everything. So he was really big into that. And you got to remember too, in his culture, that it's a sacred plant, and so they don't want to corrupt
it, perhaps. No, further. Not corrupt, but like further process it.
Yeah, I do know one thing. They would do certain things to it for medicinal stuff. Like sometimes they would actually add, I think, vanilla,
honey.
No, not honey.
Rum?
They would use. He would use, like, for certain things, he would use it with the tobacco leaf with vanilla. The other one was actually like a chili, like a hot pepper with something. And then a third one was, I'm trying to remember what the third one was. He had another thing that was some kind of other herb that he would use for something else, and he'd mix it with the tobacco. But that wasn't really for I caught him doing his, like, certain things that he do sometimes, and it was just a ritual thing. That was a ritual thing. His day-to-day smoking habit, this old man there's times that's all I'm trying something, because he liked the flavor of coffee, so he would, I even seen one time he was sometimes be like, man, is he crazy?
Like a mad scientist?
Yeah, because I noticed he would experiment sometimes. Like, I remember when I first started watching him, after a couple years of his life, I started watching him dip it into coffee, but sometimes he'd even put the coffee grind in the center of the where he'd light up, just to give it a different. Just because he was just he just wanted something different, I guess. I don't know, just.
Man, this is the first time I'm hearing of this guy.
Really?
Yeah, knowing you
I
for
thought-
what, 13 years?
Well, you got to
Or
remember
Yeah.
too. It's like this is the kind of reason why I was glad we talked, because we don't really get when you're in a group with a bunch of guys, we don't really get to talk like this. You know what I mean? We talk, we know a lot of our stories, but we really don't sit down and talk. And that's pretty cool concept that you have over here, because it's actually like
with this podcast, like one-on-one kind of intimate
man.
setting. Yeah.
I gotta congratulate you, man. This is pretty cool, man. And on
Thank
top
you.
of that, it's like, man, your store. Dude, like just like I tell her, like, man, I remember when Lou was just first starting out, man.
Let's talk about that. The first
little
time,
guy,
the first time you met me, where was that?
In Covington.
Yeah.
And that's when I lived in Covington. Actually, that was the first.
That was in
house I had.
2010.
Yeah, and I remember, man. I said to myself, I said, man, if anybody I know is going to make it in the cigar industry, this dude is, because you're passionate. When you have a passion about something. It's not a job. It's a love. You know what I'm saying? And everybody always says, if you're going to do something, you're going to be successful, make sure you love what you're doing. And I know you're.
It makes it easier, right?
It does make it easier, because if you love what you're doing, it's not work, right? So, and it's like from what you started to, I mean, this store is beautiful, man. I got to give you that. It's a gorgeous store. I mean,
dude, we need something like this in Metairie. Because they're so small, but like they just
killing me.
Where
man.
they're at,
I need a way. Y'all need a lounge. I mean, I'm being honest with you, y'all. I think you have that generation now. I think in New Orleans where I think we just like to have our,
it's a social outlet.
Yeah. I think I think as men. And that was the reason why I think for a little while that that place I told you about, the Humidor, did so well. There's a place where men need to congregate, need to hang out, talk manly stuff, or just talk in general. Because as men,
or their business matters, or network,
or just anything, relationships, family. Because man, we need that. Like we really, like as men, I think we always, and I think that's the reason why the cigar really attracted me, because it's a way of you.
Yeah, it's like common bond.
Exactly. Like, I mean, man, I remember we would smoke in the humidor room in New Orleans, and we had a guy that was a chef. We had a guy that was a lawyer, a judge. Me was, which I was just a construction worker, and man, we had guys that were just, I mean, we had everything.
You had characters, huh?
Yeah, we had ex-gangsters, cops. It's funny. Like, when the hell you get you're smoking with the chief of police and you got a mafioso right next to you. What do you say?
Yeah.
But they're talking about cigars and they're laughing and joking,
And we've heard this this kind of anecdote in our industry time and time again. Other shops have, through their social media have said the same thing. The cigar is like the ultimate social binder. It brings people from all walks. It doesn't matter if you're poor, rich, black, white, male, female.
It's our
this
Switzerland.
This is the equalizer,
This
right?
is our Switzerland. This is where we meet up at,
Nice. Yeah. I know.
It's like how we it's how we hang out, the stuff that we do.
But the Native Americans did that, right? Like they would use tobacco, whether it was through the pipe,
socializing.
right? Think about the peace pipe.
Yeah, it's the first socializing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Like I think, like it's inside of our DNA to socialize with each other. It's very It's very rare the band that wants to be alone all the time, 24/7, blah blah blah. Right. We have this need to have conversations, talk to each other, which is a good thing. But that cigar brings that us as a community.
It adds that extra
and then
layer to that.
Not only that, but it actually I think it brings us close to people that we would normally not hang out with. You know what I'm saying? Now we have a common bond, cigar smoking. Now I'm finding out stuff about his industry. Like, I remember this one guy we were hanging out with, and he was a charter boat captain, and he was just I was so interested in just
like the maritime industry,
just everything. But he made it sound so fun, and I was just like, I would have never known had I not met him. Right. And that's the kind of stuff that I think it opens your eyes. It's almost like traveling. You travel for what reason? To get to know different cultures, to go. I think to kind of educate yourself.
It's all about the experience.
Yeah, because sometimes you really don't know a group of people until you actually travel, right? I think that's what it is. It's like I travel to know, like when I tell you when I first went to Spain, I went because I wanted to know, my culture, because I know, okay, I'm Honduran, and I know that, but my grandfather left Spain And because he was going through the times of the dictatorships.
Like Franco?
Oh, Franco, yeah. He
That's
left.
your grandfather?
Yeah, my grandfather.
Your father's father?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, he left because they were just like, they were just,
Yeah, it was a true socialist state.
Yeah. Well, it's funny.
I guess, right? See, I don't really know the full history of Franco. I know it's still probably very divisive. Like, I never bring that up to any Spaniard when I travel there.
Yeah, because I'm gonna tell you something. Either
they
benefited.
Yeah, you either benefited
they loved it or they hated it. Yeah,
right.
And it's just it's a funny thing you say that, but yeah, it's either they
either benefited from his rule or they were or punished by him, right?
Well, my grandfather was, he was a savvy businessman, and I got to give him that.
What did he do over there? Do you know?
I know they had something to do first with the bullfighting.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what in one tent. I don't know if they were promoting or something of that nature, but he was always he was one of these guys that always had his hands on something. Promote this, do that. Yeah. I mean, just but.
I'm sure he had the silver tongue too, huh?
Oh God,
that famous Martinez silver tongue.
Oh, dude, let me tell you something, man. The men in my family are hilarious, man. They, we always say that we could always sell, bikini underwear to freaking Eskimos.
I don't know. It's like that. What is it like an icicle or a popsicle to an Eskimo?
Yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, it's just stuff that you don't need, But I honestly think like, he came. I remember when he. So I had to do my family history, and that was part of me going to Spain and everything else. And I remember that, and I had to, I did all this research and everything, and I noticed like from what he started, where he began. So when my grandfather left, he was the first one to actually leave. Like my grandfather was actually he left. The family was from originally. They were from Asturias, from the north, originally.
Originally, yeah.
Yeah, but my grandfather, for years, the family lived in Toledo,
Oh, okay.
And after Toledo, they left Toledo to go to the Americas, and they were hearing about all the stories about, plot the land for cheap in Honduras.
Oh.
Rich soil.
Yeah.
Government not bothering you because, at that time, Honduras had a government, but they didn't have the resources to enforce anything.
Yeah.
So
almost like a Wild West, huh?
Right. So it was like a new world for them. So they just said, hell, And my grandfather, and the climate was harsh for them at first. Remember he was telling me, he didn't tell me, but this is like stories that I was told from my father that was passed down. How they left and they. In the Mediterranean, the weather's great, and then they got hit with the humidity bug and the mosquitoes, but the crop that they would grow was different. Like I remember, my grandfather told my dad there's even the difference between the bananas from the Canary Islands to the bananas from Honduras. They're soft, they're just flavorful. Wherein like the ones and ain't nothing against the Canary Islands, but the bananas are hard. They're just tougher. They just what I'm saying. It's just like it's not that banana that we grew up to love in the Americas that we went crazy for. And so. But
you don't find I find that the bananas that the American consumes is not like the banana you would get in Honduras proper.
Oh, no, not at all.
They use some other like when you go to Honduras or Latin America and have their bananas.
It's different.
Dude, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's
the fruit alone.
It's hard to describe, but
ex-Joey, it's just the fruits and the vegetables grown in that region are just in a whole nother level, it's just everything from from the bananas to the
coffee
cocoa, to the coffee to the it's
Does Honduras grow cocoa?
Oh yeah.
The cocoa bean, really? I thought that was more like a South American.
No. The better cocoa beans supposedly is from South America, from Peru, I believe, and everything else. But
always
Peru. But you got to remember the Mayans used it also as currency. It's actually, believe it or not, from what Honduras had a huge amount of cocoa beans for a long time, cocoa plots or whatever they call them, in plants. But Standard Fruit Company destroyed all that and decided, hey, we're gonna make y'all one dimensional, and so they grew bananas and everything, and that's why we have so many banana plantations nowadays. But back in the days, Honduras was pretty diverse. It had a lot of different fruits and everything else. So now it's just, it seems like it's more bananas and pineapples, pineapples.
Well, think about that. I guess that's a reason why a lot of Hondurans and Salvadorans went to New Orleans. I know in the 80s, like the New Orleans airport was like the gateway to Latin America.
Yeah, standard.
Remember TACA Airlines?
TACA Airlines.
And so a lot of Central Americans went to New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Until, I guess, Houston really developed their airport and basically, left us in the dust.
Yeah.
But, New Orleans supposedly, I think, is like the number one port that receives the bananas in this country.
Yeah. For a long time, you got to remember. So I don't know. I'm trying to remember this book I read a while back ago. It was a story about the banana guy that he started. And from what I remember, I always forget this. I mean, it's a long time ago I read the book. But this guy he went in there and he started buying these plots of lands. And that's how I think they became the standard fruit company and everything else. But this guy went in, and he was originally I think he's like Russian Orthodox Jew or something like that. I don't know. But this guy went in there and he bought all these plots, became good friends with a lot of Hondurans, and then he just grew, and
sometimes some weird things happen, I'm sure.
Right, but
it's a whole other topic.
But from what I was told, Standard Fruit Company was the one company that brought a lot of Hondurans in first, before anybody else. And then what happened is, I think they, how Central Americans are. Once we find, New Orleans is a beautiful city, and then
and it has Latin roots too.
And it has Latin roots,
Spanish,
yeah. And it has a lot of our humidity and our, just it's a lot like,
it's almost like home.
Yeah, it's almost like home. Other than no mountains, no rivers, and stuff like that. I mean, we have the Mississippi, but that's about all. But I think that we fell in love with the culture, and you know how it is with Latin people. Like when we tell, hey, things are good here, and then
Everyone
good
starts
here because
coming.
everybody starts coming.
Yeah.
Because you got to remember at that time, probably somebody was making 25 cents a day or something, or who knows.
Right.
And these guys go from making that to dollars. They're like, bring your whole family.
Yeah.
Come all. And in the end, I think, man, New Orleans, for one time, see, I was born in La Ceiba, so originally at one time, I think Honduras, New Orleans has more Hondurans than La Ceiba.
Really? Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, it has. I think
it's kind of like New York supposedly has more Puerto Ricans than Puerto Rico. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're pretty pronounced in that city. Like we had at one time. I remember this was back in the 80s. I think La Ceiba had almost 180,000 in La Ceiba, and there was almost 300 in New Orleans alone.
Whoa!
Now it's like I can't even tell them apart, man. Now there's we got second and third generation. Now we got mixes of Hondurans. And you got Hondurans that are they're redheads and blondes, and then you have other Hondurans that are just like the black, the Hondurans that are like Garifas.
Oh, the Garifas?
Yeah, I can't, they're black until the minute they start speaking Spanish, you're like, oh, hey man, paisan, you're from the country.
Yeah,
it's I didn't know, it's just crazy. So it's I can't tell no more, that's the second and third generation. But yeah, it was a lot, man.
It seems like anyone who has Spanish genetics, like even Spain, right? How diverse the color skins are there.
Yeah.
You go to Asturias, like you said, or Galicia, they're more white in skin tones, as opposed to like the south of Spain, where you have more of the Moorish influence. They have the darker skin tones than everyone else in between.
Yeah, I remember what my grandfather was telling he told my dads and all this. Yeah, you got to remember. He'd always brag about Asturias is the only country that was never conquered.
That's right.
And he's like, he was
by
real proud
the
about
Moors.
that.
You're talking about the Moors.
Yeah. Well, just by everybody. He said not even Rome can conquer it.
Really?
Oh no, that's the only area that Rome said,
yeah, we'll leave you guys alone.
They went around, but Asturias it's difficult because the Asturians were known to attack people. Like they always had the higher ground. You got to remember, Asturias they knew how to use the mountains,
the Picos de Europa.
Yeah,
that's like their mountain range.
Yeah, and
we'll get into that a little bit more.
Yeah, but they really they used their grounds to defend themselves, and it's just they would make it to the point, man. He'd always brag about it. He's like they make it to the point where every time you fought in a story and you lose more than half of your army. You lose the taste of war after a while, because you're like, that was that border, that was that stronghold, that was like, this is it, this is as far as you going, we're gonna push you back from here on, and that was it, man. They knew how to use their mountain ranges and defeat you, and that's why I was always like, he'd always tell you, you better be proud of your ancestry,
your roots,
your roots, because we're the only ones that can get conquered. I said, all right, man, I got you,
So in your travels, have you been to Asturias, any town there, or you just kind of went through by train? You didn't get a chance to spend.
No, I didn't get a chance because
here you got
it was very I want to go. I haven't had a chance. It's very I wanted to see a lot of parts of Spain. I think I passed through. From what I saw, it's very beautiful. I didn't get a chance to see a lot of it. I really want to go. I'm dying to go. I think just for family, just see, because
see
I
your
went
origins,
to
right?
Well, I went to Toledo because I wanted to see where my grandfather lived and all that. That was the one thing I wanted to see, because that's kind of where he grew up, but I wanted to see. But he did. Asturias was like. It's just, it was always harder back in those days to go visit, Now I think that now that they got more hotels and it's a lot easier, they made it very like travel friendly, because back when I went, it wasn't really easy to find hotels and stuff like that. At least what I looked at the first time.
Plus,
now
this was back before the internet really was at our fingertips.
Right.
You had to really do things old school.
Right. You couldn't plan it the way you couldn't, when you go into major cities and stuff like that, it's easy to plan. There's so many hotels. Asturias is more, I can't say it's rural, but it's more remote.
Yeah, it's more remote.
Yeah, and so it's like, I don't think that they had as many hotels that they do now. Now it's just different. Now you see, it's like, wow, they really stepped up the game. So, but I always wanted to try it, man. I always wanted to see. Plus, I love the mountains, so of course.
Yeah, it's so green. Like, most Americans know Spain by like Madrid or Barcelona, or what they've seen, like via Andalusia, right? Like Seville. That's like stereotypical Spain.
That's real Spain to me.
Yeah, to you. Yeah,
to me, that's the real Spain. Like, if you've gone to, there's a saying, they say that like with Italy, if you've gone to Italy and you've not seen Sicily, you haven't seen Italy at all. Well, to me, that's, if you've gone to Spain and you didn't go to Seville, you haven't seen Spain.
Yeah,
because that's, to me, that's what true Spanish is. The flamenco, the stereotypical,
the environment there.
Yeah, plus
very Moorish.
Yeah, just everything. It's like all the three cultures blending in: the Christians, the Jew, the Muslim, just all in one culture. Just like, and then you saw it in the architecture. When we went, it was just like. It's just beautiful, man. It's incredible. I mean, look, Madrid and Barcelona, beautiful cities. I mean, gorgeous cities. They're beautiful. But Seville, man, I fell in love with Seville, man. Yeah. It was very Spanish, like it was so Spanish. It was almost flaunting it. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. But
in your face, yeah.
It's in your face. But I find that I think I liked Seville more because the people. Just more charismatic, more sweeter, more talkative. Don't get me wrong, people in Madrid and all these other places were great, but man, more Seville.
They're more cariñoso, huh?
Yeah, more cariñoso. Yeah, they were more kinder. I think they were just. I mean, you knew. I mean, golly, I don't have to tell you about that one night that we went out. Jesus.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we came out of that club like about
probably like 7 a.m.
Yeah, we had an all-nighter, huh?
Yeah. But no, it was a good time, and I want to get more into that. But I think right now this would be a good time maybe to end this first segment.
Cool.
Because I got to use the restroom, and then we can continue the part 2 for next week, because I want to get more into Spain and recount the first time you've been there, when you first took me and Mike, and then I can impart like some of my other travels. So
definitely.
Thank you for tuning in this week. Tune in for the next week when we explore more of Spain.